Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, the value of all actions depends on intentions. Innamal a'mal binniyat. So, is वक्त as a teacher, it is my intention to provide you with extremely valuable knowledge, which is not available currently in any textbooks. This knowledge will help you understand the nature of the world that we live in, and will help you in taking actions which are effective in changing the world. Now, so that is my intention. As students, it should be your intention that you will not use this knowledge for personal benefit, but for service of the Ummah. And service will be for the sake of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then this will become, your sitting in this class will become an ibadat, worship, act of worship. All actions of Muslims should be acts of worship. So, this is actually the second lecture in the Introduction to Statistics course, which I have changed the title Introduction to Statistics and Islamic Approach, because if non-Muslim students are sitting there, they can also listen, but the approach is going to be Islamic. So in the first lecture I explained, which is already available in a video recording, that why it makes a difference, because in the secular conception of things, statistics is a subject which has nothing to do with religion. So whether it's Islamic or un-Islamic, it makes no difference. Statistics is just numbers, 2 plus 5 equals 7, and what's Islamic about it and what's un-Islamic about it. But actually, so the first lecture, the whole of the first lecture is devoted to explaining why the way of teaching for Muslims and the way of learning, everything is different, and our religion has very explicit rules about what we learn, how we should teach, what we should teach. So that's the first lecture. So now we have, that is in the background. I'm not going to repeat that. So in this lecture, we are looking at something which is the most basic thing. How to compare two numbers. If something is 5 and something is 7, then which is the bigger number? Now the thing is that the conventional understanding which is taught in statistics of this basic operation is wrong. And so now I would like to explain something which is really, I found that from previous experience, the students have a lot of difficulty understanding of what is going on. So actually the first lecture was very complicated. Now I have tried to simplify it and hope that this time it will be easier to understand. So the key point here in this lecture is that in order to make such a comparison, you have to know the meaning of the numbers. You cannot say, okay, this measure is, that the corruption measure in Pakistan is 5 and it is 7 in Bangladesh, so Bangladesh is more corrupt. Because this thing, how the number was gotten, what it means, all of these things make a difference. So it's not just, according to the standard technique, if one is 7 and the other is 5, then it's finished. 7 is bigger than 5. You don't need to ask what this number means, where it came from. Your job as statistician is only to deal with the numbers. I am saying this is a wrong idea which is taught in statistics, and you have to, before you say that 7 is bigger than 5, you have to ask, what is this 7 and what is this 5? And you cannot make a decision that 7 is bigger than 5 before you ask this question, which is strange because it is the opposite of what is taught. So first let us start with the story from the Quran that Musa, the Pharaoh, gathered a lot of magicians, and they said to Musa alayhi salam that you should throw your rod, or you want us to throw first. So they all had sticks. So Musa alayhi salam said, you go ahead first, you can have the first turn. So they started throwing their sticks, and there were thousands of snakes. Musa alayhi salam was scared. He said, what will happen now? They have more. So Allah Ta'ala said that, don't worry Musa, just throw your staff. So Musa alayhi salam threw his one rod, and it ate up all of the thousands of false snakes. This is very exactly descriptive of what we are doing today, because the numbers are used to deceive people, exactly as the magicians deceived the people. So this is a powerful illusion. So we have to understand what is this illusion and how to counter it. This is the object of this lecture. So we will see that in this lecture that some numbers are real and some are imaginary. And this distinction is not made, and so people think that all numbers are real. And therefore they are impressed by saying, oh, this is a fact. You cannot argue with facts. If somebody says this is 7, this is 5, 7 is bigger than 5, who can argue with that? So the thing is that the 7 may not be a 7. It may just look like a 7, but the reality behind the 7 is just a stick. So this is the thing, that some facts are not really facts. Some facts are there. Some are, but some are not. Okay, so what is statistics about? According to the standard textbooks, statistics is about studying numbers and deriving. So numbers are already facts, and then you derive more facts from this. This is the mean, this is the median, this is the variance, etc. But this is not what the subject is about actually. The subject is about rhetoric. Rhetoric is a word which means how to persuade other people. So I can argue something. If I can argue in a good way, then what people will be persuaded. They will agree with me. If I make a bad argument, people will say, "Oh, this is not a good argument. I don't agree with what you are saying." So rhetoric is the art of how to make a persuasive argument. Now, this used to be a subject that was studied in school. There are books written on it. But in early 20th century, this was dropped. Now the word rhetoric has a different meaning from what it used to have. This is very important to understand. Now the word rhetoric means just hot air. It means that somebody who doesn't have the facts and he's trying to blow up something to make illusion which is not really there. Why? Because in the early 20th century, it was decided that there are two different things. There is facts and there is opinions. Opinions have no value, facts have all the value. And everything that you need to know can be obtained from the facts. So now, if I want to persuade you, all I have to do is to give you the numbers. I have to say, here is 7, here is 5, 7 is bigger than 5. And everybody will agree because facts are objective. Now if I say, 7, this is incorrectly measured and maybe there is a subjective element, I can make some argument. So this is just hot air. I am trying to confuse you about the facts. So rhetoric is a bad thing now. So rhetoric is not taught and not studied, and if you look at the meaning in the dictionary, it will say it's not a good word. So it used to be a good word, now it's became a bad word. Because of this idea which was formally created in a philosophy which was called logical positivism, and it said that there are facts and there are opinions. And so today you might hear in different places that, okay, just tell me the facts. I don't want to know about your opinions. Because, you see, the subjective, my opinion, is worthless. It's not part of knowledge. What is objective and what can be measured and what can be calculated, that is knowledge. What I think about things, what I feel, what I believe, this is not part of knowledge, according to the logical positivists. Now, logical positivism was a wrong philosophy. It was proven wrong. But for reasons which I have explained in detail in one paper which is called Logical Positivism in Islamic Economics, which is worth reading, this separation cannot be done. You cannot separate facts and values. And everything has both combined. So the idea that you have only facts and facts themselves will tell you the answer, this idea is wrong. Facts by themselves never tell you the answer to important questions. So this means that rhetoric is a real thing, important. And now statistics is the art of using numbers to persuade other people. So I'm trying to convince you that Pakistan economy is doing very well. Why? Because I am the PM and I want you to give me a vote. So I say, okay, here's the number, and I'm showing that my growth rate is 4.2% and the previous government had growth rate of only 3%, so I'm doing well and so you should vote for me. So this is an argument. I'm trying to persuade you of something. Now this 4.2%, this is a imaginary number. It doesn't really, it's not real. It is a number that I've made after doing a lot of cooking. And a different person can cook these numbers in a different way. And this is the job of the statistician, is to understand how numbers are manufactured and to be able to manufacture different numbers so that he can construct a different argument. It is not, as common statistics textbooks will teach you, that the job is to just look at the numbers and analyze. The numbers are, according to the conventional, these are the final word. You don't look behind the numbers. I'm trying to say that no, the job of the statistician is to manufacture the numbers, to understand how they are manufactured, to be able to change the process. Okay, so now, so to understand this, you have to understand that some numbers are real and some numbers are not real. So if I say that the height of Javaria is 150 centimeters, there is no dispute about that. And maybe it's 150.1, and maybe she is trying to be more tall than she is, but the number is, there is fact. There is no argument about it. But if I say that Javaria is very intelligent and her IQ is 150, this is not a fact. This number 150 is just hot air. So, but to the statistician, 150 is 150. So, if I say that Javaria is 150 and Sumera is 145, so Javaria is taller than Sumera, this is a fact. Yani assuming that there is no fishy business with the numbers. But I would say Javaria is smarter than Sumera because Javaria has an IQ of 150 and Sumera has an IQ of 145. This is not a fact. So now 155 is bigger than 140. But if the number is representing IQ, then because IQ is not a fact, it is just an imagination. So there is nothing you can deduce from. But from heights you can. So some numbers are factual and some are imaginary. But the thing is that all the time, this is the job of the magicians. They say, here is the number, our growth rate is 4.2% and therefore we are better. Now this 4.2%, this is not a fact. But very few people know about this. And so the job of the statistician is to understand that some numbers are real and some are not. Alright, so here is the data on GDP, which is taken from the World Development Indicators, created by the World Bank. So this is taken as the most authentic data there is. And this is the basically what does GDP measure? It measures the wealth of nations. So if you have more GDP, then you are richer. If you have less GDP, you are poorer. And now this is the definition which is taken from the World Bank. At purchases price, sum of gross value added by all resident producers plus any taxes minus subsidies. It is calculated without making deductions for depreciations or for depletion or degradation of natural resources and data in current local currency. So it's actually here, even in the definition, it's providing you some hints about why this is not necessarily very accurate. First of all, it says that, okay, we measure what is being produced, but we don't measure depreciation. If something is being used up, we don't measure it. And if there is, if your environment is getting completely damaged, that's also not calculated. So there are some significant problems. And so obviously if we take into this account, then we will get a different number. And there are many problems, many more problems which are not mentioned here. So, just like you see, if you measure intelligence, then there are many ways to measure intelligence, and you can, by using one measure instead of another, you can get another conclusion. So similarly, we have to understand that GDP is not a real number. You see, not a fact. GDP is not a fact. Basically, we will discuss that more later. But you see, you have to understand that it's not that all numbers. Right? If I say how many people are there in this room, this is a fact. There is a number. Number is real. There is no dispute about that. Now, the thing is that the magic trick is that when you say GDP growth rate is 4.2%, oh, this is a number. If it's 4.2, it's not 4.3, it's not 4.1. So people think, and this is the magic, that every number is a fact. This is a big problem because you can easily deceive people. Because when you mention a number, then everybody says, okay, this is fact. Nobody can argue with facts. So now actually, there are many ways that we can, so the job of the statistician is to create other numbers to counter one number. So instead of one snake, we can create another snake. So if somebody says, okay, look, we are richer than you because we have GDP of 1 trillion and you have only GDP of 1 billion. So we are 1,000 times richer than you. Well, then we say that, okay, what does richness mean? You see, we have taken something, you can say that you have more money than we do, okay, that's, when you, but if you say we have more wealth, now you see, this is a very common tactic, that you take a qualitative, conceptual, theoretical object and then you convert it into a number. Now this is something you have to watch for, the trick that is being done. This is the job of the statistician, to look at this trick. There is a concept and then there is a measurement, but between these there is a big gap. So when I say that we are wealthy, we are better, this is what is being said, we are better off. Then is it really true that somebody who has more money is better off than somebody who has less money? Are we trying to argue about happiness? You see, for example, people say, and this is explicitly said elsewhere, that GDP is a measure of welfare. A nation, if it has more money, it is better off. It is, and this is actually, this idea is in the minds of everybody. So all of the nations, they are trying to improve their GDP. Why? Suppose that we know, as I will show, that GDP doesn't matter for the happiness of the people. Then why should we make all this effort to try to increase the GDP? Shouldn't we try to improve the happiness of people? This is in Bhutan, they have stopped making GDP per capita and they have said that we will measure the happiness, the national happiness index. So now you see, going from the concept, lots of things get buried under, and so the job of so we are just saying GDP. So we are pretending that there is a fact. This is a number. We don't worry about welfare. But the question is, why are we measuring GDP? If we are measuring GDP only because everybody thinks that this is a very important measure. If this was not important, then we would not be measuring it. Now, in the conventional economic theory, poverty is not important because the only way to overcome poverty is to by increase wealth. So directly measuring poverty makes no difference because unless you can increase wealth, you cannot attack poverty. Now this is actually wrong. This is the standard trickle-down theory. But so, because the theory says this, so nobody measures poverty. So, we have GDP figures going back 60 years, we don't have poverty figures. We don't have income inequality. We don't have income distribution figures for most nations. But you can find, if you look at the WDI tables, you will find figures on GNP per capita for every nation for all the times. But if you look at income inequality figures, in some places, for some countries, it's available. If you look at poverty figures, very difficult to find. Why? Because those things are not considered important. So we say, no, these are the things which matter. So then we will start calculating them. So suppose that somebody says that we are better off because we have more wealth than you. Then how can you counter argue? You could say, okay, let's look at your level of hunger, malnutrition, education, jobs. So Nawaz Sharif is saying that we are doing very well in Pakistan because our growth rate is 4.2%. You can say, what happened to hunger in the country? What happened to the malnutrition? How is the education level? What is the number of jobs? So now the thing is that because everybody thinks, and this is the standard, that the GDP per capita is everything, and everything else follows from GDP. You will get education if you have more money, you will get more jobs if you have more money. So we just focus on this thing. This is the argument that is made behind the number. So this argument is not valid. And if we change the argument, if we say, no, GNP is unimportant, what matters is education, what matters is jobs, what matters is food security. So these are the three numbers we should look at. So then, if we say if in the newspapers, you see, if you think about, you are in econometrics, so if you look at what the people are doing, you look at the theses. So what is the effect of FDI on growth? What is the effect of exports on growth? What is the effect of... Everybody is talking about how we can make the GNP better. Nobody is talking about how can we improve the health of the people, how can we improve education levels, what is the effect of exports on education. So this is the thing which matters, because the economists have hijacked the discourse and they have said that GDP is all important, so we are all following along and we think this is objective and this is numerical. It's not. If we change the discourse and this will make a difference. We say that no, we are going to measure. This is actually exactly the reasoning which Mahbubul Haq followed. He said that put in education, put in life expectancy, so as to make governments look at those things. If the government says that we are doing very well, we say, no, your life expectancy hasn't improved, so you haven't done well in health. Or education level hasn't improved, you haven't done well. If this kind of newspaper articles are coming out, then the government will pay attention, put more budget into the health and put more budget into the schools. But if this is not coming out, we are doing great because our GNP growth is 4.2, then this is what will happen. Then no budget for education and no budget for health because it's not needed to get the votes. So statistics is important, and what games are being played with statistics is even more important. Alright, now this is the table of values. It's a small table. You have actually 230 countries and you have about 60 years of data. So I have reduced it to a few countries and a little bit of data just to show. So this is the first lecture in statistics, so I'm showing students what data looks like. So here is a data in which we have on 6 different countries. This is just illustration because it fits on a slide, and I have given the data for GDP. And this is in LCU. LCU stands for local currency units. So India is measured in Indian rupees, Pakistan in Pakistani rupees, and Malaysia in Malaysian ringgits, and Bangladesh in Bangladesh taka, and yuan, and Irish pound. And then we have data. So now the question is, we were talking about comparability. So we look at the Indian figure and we say the GNP was 0.476 in 1970 and is now 1.5. So did the GDP increase? Well, again, if you just say numbers, okay, first of all, you have to understand this is what is called a panel data set. If you look at the numbers in the columns, these are cross-section because you have a fixed time and you have data for different countries. So that's what a cross-section is. If you look at a row, that is a time series data. Time series data have different characteristics from cross-section. One very simple way to understand is that in a cross-section, if you shuffle the data, it makes no difference. But in time series, if you shuffle the data, it makes all the difference because what comes first and what comes next, this matters. So time series data is different from cross-section data. And this is a panel data where you have both time series and cross-section. So this is just to introduce the kinds of data to a first lecture. But now what I want to, the main question is, when we look at 7 and 5, can we say 7 is bigger than 5? This is the main question of this. We are trying to answer in this. So we say, okay, 1.5 was the wealth in India, and so did it increase? This is one question. The question I have asked in this is that, okay, in 1970, 13.1 is the biggest number. So can we say that Malaysia is the most wealthy country? Can we say that Malaysia, because Malaysia has 13.1 is bigger than all of the other numbers, they are all very small. The next one is 2.26 for Ireland and so on. So is Malaysia the richest country? Every country is measured in its own kind of currency. We don't know how to compare the currency, so these numbers are not comparable. So as I said, 7 is not bigger than 5, 13 is not bigger than 2 because they are different in units. So you see, it's not the statistician's idea that 7 is bigger than 5. Facts are facts. This is not true. Alright. So when we look at comparison across time, so as I said, we look at this, did the Malaysian GNP increase in 1980 from 1970? Well, 1.5 is bigger than 0.476. So obviously the number is higher. Can we say that it increased? The value of the Indian rupee doesn't remain constant over time. There is inflation. So we don't know whether this increase is due to inflation or whether it is due to increase in the wealth. So if the price of the rupee has become very large, then so here is a example for Turkey, because Turkey was a very high inflation country in the 1970s. So we look at the second column, in billions of Turkish lira in current LCU. So it goes from 1.58 to 2.78, from 78 to 79, almost doubling, going from 1.5 to 3. But the growth rate was minus 1%, and the inflation was 50%. So basically, inflation was 70%. So basically, most of the growth in the GNP was due to the fact that the value of the Turkish lira changed a lot. And actual physical growth was very little. Now, to adjust for this problem, there is something which is called indexation. So what we have in the GNP series, instead of current LCU, you have constant LCU. You try to measure everything in the currency which is valued at 1970, for example. So Turkish lira, the value. Now, so these are the figures in the first column. So 31.4, 31.2. So you can see that the GNP is not going up very fast. In current LCU, which doesn't take into account inflation, it goes from 1 to 129, going up more than 100 times, or 100 times almost. But in real terms, which is what is said, it doesn't go up that much. But the thing is that this adjustment is an imaginary adjustment. There are many different ways to make this adjustment. So we cannot just, these are again numbers which are not real, and there are many different ways to make this calculation. And in fact, the first time I recorded the lecture, I recorded the issue about how to do this in detail. So there are indexes which are called Pasch index and Laspere index, and by using this we can get different indexes. So we can the way to adjust for the currency varies. There are two well-known methods, Pasch and Laspere, and there are many others which you can develop. So according to this, so by using different indexes you get different constants. So there is no one method, and there is no one objective acceptable to all technique. So these numbers are imaginary numbers, and you can change them. So this is the job of the statistician, learn how to change these numbers in a good way, yani according to the argument. You see, this is the thing, that the numbers are never just numbers. It is always numbers and a story about the numbers, and you have to keep the story in mind. Now, the way statistics is taught and the way all of knowledge, all of Western knowledge is built, is that the story is hidden in the background. And you argue as if you are talking only facts. So nobody can argue against you because the story is hidden. So the job of the statistician is bring out the story. What is the story that is being told? The story that is being told with these numbers is that Turkey's growth was very low. So now we can ask, okay, growth was low or was it high? Now, the numbers are not meaningless. The numbers have some relation to reality, but this relation is loose, flexible. It can be adjusted up and down. It is not completely irrelevant. You cannot throw out the numbers plus the narrative. Together, they make the story. But given a narrative, you can select some other set of numbers to illustrate and explain. And this is again the job of the statistician. If somebody says that America is much better off than Pakistan because they have much more money, so we can say, well, what about suicides? What about drinking? What about broken families? What about crime? What about murders? In all of those, so this is the argument. So I pick a different set of numbers and I can show that we are better. So you have to understand that the argument, what is the argument being made, and use the numbers relevant to that argument. Okay, so we've already done this. How do we convert? So now what I want to show is that there are standard counter arguments. Everybody knows that, okay, currencies are not comparable. So how do we compare? Okay, let's convert these currencies into a common thing. Either we can take the Chinese ringgit, Chinese yuan, and convert it into US dollars, or some other. Yani, suppose I want to convert, we have these 6 countries and we have 230 countries. Convert everything into a common currency. Alright, let's have a look at that. Here is the Chinese GDP in US dollars, and in gold, and in Indian rupees. So, and the original in yuans. So the top line is the yuans, and then we have trillion in dollar, US dollars, then we have in gold, and then we have in Indian rupee. So you can see that whatever argument you want to make, you can make. So if you want to, so you have to understand that these conversions, okay, I've There are many indexes. In fact, in the WDI, you will find the GDP of Pakistan in local currency units and in US dollars. So once you have in US dollars, then you can compare across countries. But is this an objective, factual comparison? Well, you look at this and you can tell the answer. That, okay, suppose instead of US dollars, suppose I convert everything into gold, I will get different result. If I suppose convert everything into Chinese yuan, I will get different results. So again, 5 is bigger than 6 is not clear. How? Where did you get that 5 and where did you get that 6? So, okay, so this is prices change, goods, and so WDI is not. Okay, so now another place where one has severe difficulties in comparing numbers, and this is something which happens very commonly. In fact, this is the basic thing which happens when you do indexation. When you construct a price index, and that was what I have omitted from the lecture, Pash index. So, okay, so we're asking about inflation. So what is inflation? Well, every good last year has a different price this year. But did all the prices increase 10%? No. Atta increased double. Price of petrol went down. Different. So there's no inflation. What is inflation? Well, this is multi-dimensional. You have numbers this time. Unlike, there are some things which are qualitative, like intelligence, like beauty, like health. What is your health? 75? 89? There's no measure for it. It is a qualitative concept. Some of the things are multidimensional. Like inflation is multidimensional. There are numbers. We know what the price is last year and we know what the price is this year. And it went up by 10%. So there are numbers. But there's atta and there's energy and there's house price and many others. So different numbers. So one of the things that you need to learn how to do is to read. This is very important because knowledge comes from reading. This is again something which our students are very deceived about. People are coming, what should I pick as a topic? This topic, that topic. So the thing is not about picking it, because you have been taught that you have to produce something new. So, oh, this topic is already taken. He has done FDI, so I can't do FDI. This is it's not like that. I mean, this is not, and you don't have to think, oh, nobody has studied the effect of rainfall in Brazil on Chinese forest growth, so I've got a topic now. This is not how you do topics. So what you need to do is to read. If you read, the more you read, the more you will understand, and then topics will automatically come as a result of. So it's all about input, learning things, not about output. You're not actually in a position to produce. When you absorb enough knowledge, automatically the questions will arise on the basis of that knowledge. So people are always searching for topic in backwards way. Let's see, okay, this has been done, cross it out. No, it's not like that. In any topic, there is huge amount of room to work. So the point of this is that you should start reading things. And one of the articles, very nice article, Malcolm Gladwell, Order of Things. It starts by saying that there is a magazine called Car and Driver, and this magazine is doing a comparison of cars. It says that, okay, we are going to evaluate cars and find out which car is the best car. So they are looking at sports cars. So they say Porsche, it has 193 points, and Chevrolet, it has 186, and Lotus has 182. So it says that, okay, it's a very difficult comparison. The article says, the article in Car and Driver, which is being cited by Malcolm Gladwell, says that, okay, it's a very difficult comparison, but there is a clear winner. Porsche comes out on top by a big margin. So Porsche is the best car. what is going on? And he says that, this Car and Driver, this is a very well reputable magazine. Everybody reads it, and if they say that this is the best, this is going to influence people. People are going to go say, okay, Car and Driver says Porsche is best, so we will go and buy. So they are making an argument. But is this this 193, is this a real number, or is this an illusion, one of those magics? It is magic. It is not real. This 193 is not a real number. And how was this comparison made? Actually, there were 22 criteria, but I will simplify. So there is the external, the appearance of the car, and then there is the internal, which is the comfort and factors, the internal, and then there is the engine of the car, which is the unseen part, and then there is the price. So there are 4 factors. So all of these things have different evaluations. The Lexus has the best exterior, the Porsche has the best interior, Lexus has better engine, price, Chevrolet is best for. So, which car is the best car? So this is what I'm trying to say. Now we really have numbers, and we have 4 different, but what should we do? Suppose we add all 4 of them, we will get a score, but does it have any meaning? If we add for all 4, that means we are saying that each of these dimensions should be weighed by 25%. Well, suppose that I have a tight budget. I will say that the only thing which matters, these are all equivalent roughly, I will pick the Chevrolet because it has the cheapest price. Or somebody who is really interested in strong engine performance, he will say, okay, the best car here is the Lexus. Or somebody who likes the interior. So different people have different best. So the illusion, the magic comes from thinking that there is an answer to the question that there is a best car. If you think that there is an answer to this question, then you are already trapped. Now somebody produces the numbers and he says, okay, this proves that this is the best car. This is just an illusion. Meaningless argument. I will make this in another example which will make this clearer. So now we have Junaid, mother brings him 4 rishtas. He says, here is Asma, and she ranks 100 on beauty and 30 on wealth. She is poor girl, and she has a caste which is so-so, and her character is 80, character by Deendari, let us say that. So there are these 4 girls, and they have different, on each of these 4 dimensions they have different characteristics. So now how should we decide? Which is the best girl to marry? There is no numerical answer to this. And if we think that there is a numerical answer, we are already deceived. And the thing that I am trying to tell you is that this question is answered every day. People are, the illusion, the magic of numbers is very strong, very powerful, and it's being done every day, and people are being fooled by it. Actually, what happens is that somebody decides, okay, Junaid has seen Asma and he says that, oh, she is too pretty. Now what will happen? He can invent a number. He can invent a way, and he can justify by putting different weights on different criteria according to this, and he can make an objective ranking which will show that Asma is the top candidate according to this. I know how to do it. And this is actually exactly what happens in a lot of statistics, that I have already made a decision that FDI is very important for GDP. Now I can create the numbers and the regression which will prove this. And people do this. I mean, they run through a lot of regressions and they finally find one which has the answer that they are looking for. Say, here, this is the regression. And this proves what I am saying. But the result was already there in advance before any regressions were run. So here also, this is the same kind of thing. Now, I will give you a specific. The Malcolm Gladwell article goes on to discuss about college rankings. That there are very well-known, very popular college rankings, and this is US World Report, and it takes these 7 criteria: undergraduate reputation and graduation and faculty and student and financial resources and graduation rate performance and alumni giving, and it gives these weights, and it ranks the colleges. So according to this ranking, so and so college is the best, and according to if you change this numbers, you can get some other college to be the best. And now, is there a unique best college? So the question is, which is the best college? Superficially, it looks like a good question, but actually it's not. This is not a sensible question. There is no answer to this question, which is the best college. Depends on you. Suppose that, for example, there are some colleges, like a sensible way to think about it was, look at all of the colleges which are giving financial aid. Somebody says, I can't go to college unless I get scholarship. So now, College X gives 90% scholarships to its graduate students. College Y gives 30%. Okay, so College X is much better than College Y for this student. If some student wants to study some field, and then he can say, okay, this college produces the most research in this field. Or he can look at what is the graduation rate, or he can look at how much time does it take on the average. Depends. Different students have different needs, and different colleges will be best for different criteria. There is no one best college. The question itself doesn't make any sense. So now we get to the HEC ranking. This is a real ranking in which is published, and now people follow this. So so there's plagiarism check. So now if I want to get PIDE to have a high ranking, then I have to look at these numbers, and then I have to try to make sure that all of these numbers are increasing. But does it mean that PIDE is becoming a better college? Not necessarily. Maybe that what matters is what's happening inside the classroom, which nobody can come in and measure. How well the teacher is delivering the lecture, this is not being measured anywhere. So what is real often is unmeasurable, and what is measurable doesn't actually do a reflection. Like, you see what happened, this numerology became very strong because I wrote an article on this recently, which a result-based management. Yes, this became very popular. So that you cannot manage something unless you can measure it. So you have to have key performance indicators. You have to have, so basically the first theorem of a result-based management is that you cannot, so if I want to improve PIDE, then I have to have measurable indicators. What is the number of students? So let's take the real example. What is the research capability of PIDE? How many articles are being published? So, that's a number. Actually, this is not, according to normal understanding, this is not how one would do. One would say, let's look at, not just count the number of articles, we look at the quality. What is the high level of research? Is it influential? Is it helping for policy making? Is it being read by others? There are many qualitative measures, which cannot be easily reduced into a single number. Now, according to the RBM principle, if something can be measured, then you cannot manage it. So we say, where can I find a number that I can measure? So, I can count the number of articles. And if I want to do more, I can look at the impact factor of the journals. Different journals have different categories. So, I can say, you say that I should look at quality. So, quality is going to be measured by the impact factor. Now, the mistake and the problem is that there is a step. There is research, abstract concept, qualitative, and there is number of articles, numerical and measured. But there is a intermediate steps. I have translated research into number of articles. And if you don't like that, I can adjust it for quality by adding an impact factor. But neither is it true that research equals number of articles, nor is it true that quality equals impact factor. In both cases, I have made a conversion of a qualitative concept into a quantitative one, but there are many other ways to do the same thing. Now, what happened as a result really in the world was that when this RBM became very popular all over the world, in Turkey, in Pakistan, Indonesia, everybody, they started evaluating professors by how many articles. So what happened as a result was that thousands of fake journals came up, all in 2000, not before that, because people were not using this. Since 2000, thousands of journals. You pay money, you get your article published, and now the games keep going on. The HEC said, no, we won't count this journal unless it is indexed in Scopus. So, okay, everybody, journal gets indexed in Scopus. Okay, we won't count it unless it gets cited. Okay, so the journal says, oh, it has an impact factor. What is the impact factor? Impact factor measures that if an article is in this journal, then how many people are reading that article, and the measure of that is if you have an article, you should cite that other article. So the journal said, okay, everyone who publishes in this journal has to cite an article in the previous. So suddenly the journal has huge impact factor, because then they came up with this H index. H index says that, okay, if a journal cites its own journal, we won't count that. Okay, so they have two journals. Now this journal cites this one and this one cites this one. They haven't devised a way to overcome this problem yet. So the point is that when you get into a numbers game, it's a numbers game. It's not really. So there's the real thing and there's the numbers. And the numbers are magic. They create an illusion of quantitativeness which is not valid. So, in order to get knowledge, you have to read. Quran starts with Iqra. You should start reading, and you have to learn what to read and what not to read. And in this course, in the Introstats course, I try to provide readings which is useful, relevant, and readable, that the student can read and understand. To some extent, you have to be able to also not be discouraged. I mean, if there are a few things which you don't understand, it doesn't matter. You should try to overcome that and try to understand the sense of the article anyway. This is very important, because students very frequently, they start reading an article and the first sentence that they cannot understand, they stop. They say, okay, this one is beyond me. You should not do that. You should try to get the sense of the article, even if there are some things you cannot understand, because this is magic, you see. They are trying to deceive you into thinking that you are stupid, you cannot read, and I am mentioning the instrumental variable estimator, so now you will stop reading and say, oh, this is too much for me, this is too difficult, and I cannot understand it. So that is the goal. The magician wants you to, yes, exactly, to get scared, and so you have to throw the stick of your own iman at this, and then it will swallow all the false snakes. So, the only thing that we know for true and for sure is that Allah Ta'ala is the greatest, and all praise belongs to Him, and He is without any comparable. Now, when we try to rank other things, then often, this is better, this student has higher score, so it's better. Now we can say that the student has more score, this is numerical. This student scored 90 on the exam, this student 80. This is numerical, it's a fact, there is no doubt about it. But what it means, if you say, okay, this student is a better student, that's no longer clear, because we have one measure, there are other measures. So most things are unmeasurable, qualitative, multidimensional. Whenever these things are there, then trying to, these are inherently unmeasurable, subjective. When you make a decision, it will be subjective. Now you can disguise this subjectivity by creating a number, and this is what is being done all the time. And so when you create a number, this creates an illusion of objectivity. The subjectivity is hidden, and this deceives people into saying that you are being objective and factual and concrete when it is not. And this is the main job of statistics. It is to deceive people into thinking that we are doing something objective when in fact everything is being done by opinions. Not everything, there are some real numbers, but real numbers are few, false numbers are much more. So that's all for this lecture. Subhanallah, bihamdihi, subhanallah.